You have not matured. We've got to take you back to elementary school. You have not matured. We've got to take you back to elementary school. You have not matured. We've got to take you back to elementary school. And one of the ways he says we know you have not matured is by this time you ought to be teachers. And one of the ways he says we know you have not matured is by this time you ought to be teachers. If you only come to church for you and your biblical truth has never been transferred, if you only come to church for you and your biblical truth has never been transferred to your family, to other people, to other saints, it is because you've not yet become an adult, not yet matured, and need to go back to elementary school. You're still immature because he says by this time you ought to be teachers. And he's not talking to pastors and leaders. He's talking to the general Christian community. Because by this time, you ought to be able to help others move along spiritually too. Because by this time, you ought to be able to help others move along spiritually too. The syllogism can be stated this way. Rate multiplied by time determines distance. And since the rate of our movement is different, our arrival time won't be the same. Some Christians are walking Christians, so they take an extended amount of time to arrive at maturity. Other Christians are bicycle Christians, so they take a shorter amount of time. Other Christians are riding a car, and we wonder how somebody who's only been saved for 5 years is so much spiritually mature than a person who's been saved for 30 years. The goal is the same, but the rate of speed is different. Because they're not moving at the same rate, they don't get to the same distance at the same amount of time. So the question related to spiritual maturity is, how bad do you want it and how fast are you moving? It's a big difference from hearing the word and using the word. It is not the knowledge of the word that matures you. It is certainly critical as the foundation to maturity. But your growth, my growth to maturity, is tied to how accustomed we are to taking the word we've heard, we've learned, we've memorized, and utilizing it in life's realities.